Usually, you feel scared when watching horror movies, but what if you witness a terrifying Halloween tale? After all, Halloween is known to make your nightmares come true, so we present you with 3 terrifying Halloween tales that will keep you up at night. Number 3. A Mother's Love. One afternoon, a couple was driving along when they noticed a woman in the middle of the road, frantically waving. The woman advised her husband to continue driving, even though it would be risky. But the husband chose to drive by slowly in order to avoid dwelling on what might have happened and the possibility that someone might have been injured. As they approached, they saw a woman with bruises and wounds on her arms and face. They then make the decision to halt and see if they can offer any assistance. The woman who had cuts and bruises begged people for assistance, stating that she had just been in a car accident and that her husband and son, a newborn, were still inside the vehicle, which was down in a deep ditch. She informed them that although her spouse had passed away, her child appeared to still be alive. Some people go out hunting for ghost encounters on purpose, and occasionally they are successful. Kevin and his pals had heard of a perilous turn on the neighboring highway when they were teenagers. It had been the scene of numerous accidents and, was now said to be haunted. The most well-known incident involved a mother who committed suicide after learning that her son had been killed in a vehicle accident. It was believed in the neighborhood that her ghost remained at the dangerous turn to prevent people from suffering that same fate as her deceased child. Kevin and his pals made the decision to test that hypothesis. Kevin took his companions to the highway at night. The boys stopped at the turn when they reached it. They used a bag of flour that they'd brought along to cover the car, the grass, and the road with the white powder. To demonstrate that the ghost was actually real, they intended to find footprints. The boys climbed back inside and started steering the vehicle around the bend. Kevin continued to speed quickly and then thump, almost as if someone had slammed down on the car with their own 2 hands. It had come to a sudden stop. As soon as they exited the vehicle, they noticed 2 handprints in the white flour on the hood that were the size of a woman's. Number 2. The Uninvited Party Guest. An adult dinner party was being held one evening. They had all just taken their seats, 6 of them, when they heard an unexpected knock on the door. The hostess of the dinner party opened the door to see if anyone was there, but nobody was. She told her visitors that someone must have realized they had the wrong address. But there was a 7th dish set when they all brought their focus back to the table. One of the men questioned, "Was that there before?" The hostess admitted, "I think I put an additional place by accident." She took it back to the kitchen, but when she came back, another dish with a glass on it was already there. The other visitors were chatting amongst themselves and hadn't noticed anything odd. However, when they understood what had occurred, they were horrified and unsure of what to do. They decided that the best course of action at this time was just to play along. So in order to appease their enigmatic, unwelcome party guest, they replenished the empty glass and plate. Later that night, the host was startled by the abrupt darkness as she awoke from her dream and saw sheets covered in sweat. In bed by herself, her heart was racing. She unzipped her heated blanket and moved toward the frosted window to get some fresh air. 3:04 a.m. was displayed on the blazing red clock on her husband's side of the bed. On this chilly Tuesday night, Charlie should have been sleeping next to her. In the living room, she struggled to make out the sound of his PlayStation. When he had trouble falling asleep, he would occasionally play in the middle of the night. There were no sounds, and she could not detect any light coming from the bedroom door's crack. The red alarm clock glaring against the closed closet door was the only source of illumination that she could make out. She got out of bed and looked about, checking out the kitchen, living room, and bathroom. The first floor wasn't where Charlie was. If he was in the house, the only option left was the basement. She confirmed that all of the doors were secured and that his car was parked in the driveway. She was just partly awake and still lost at the top of the basement stairs when she noticed that the cellar's lights were all off. Charlie always demanded that they leave one of the lights on down there, so that was rather strange. "Charlie," she mutely cried out into the underground gloom. "Charlie?" She didn't hear anything back, and her anxiety increased. How could he have gotten away? He wouldn't have left without her knowing, ever. Pretty creepy, isn't it? Number 1. The Lonely Ferris Wheel. There was an amusement park in a small Russian town. The enormous Ferris wheel that towered over the park was the most well-known of its many rides. When a 4-year-old boy's parents took him to the theme park in 2007, a disaster occurred. They weren't paying attention to their son since they were intoxicated and negligent. The small youngster requested to ride the Ferris wheel, but was denied access due to his age. The boy was left unsupervised when the parents rode the Ferris wheel alone. Nobody was there to observe the small boy sprinting forward and taking hold of the bar at the back of his parents' car just before the journey began. He was hoisted up as the Ferris wheel started to rotate, hanging in the air. A little while later, the boy's hands grew fatigued and he was unable to hold on. He lost control and died after falling about 100 feet in the air. Everyone present when the accident happened started yelling. The boy's parents turned serious right away and became aware of what had just occurred. They were upset and started criticizing the ride's owner and the park's owners. While authorities looked into the mishap, the ride was shut down. In the end, they concluded that the parents were to blame for the mishap, and they were sentenced to prison for child neglect. A party of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts visited the theme park in the summer of 2008. They chose to ride the enormous Ferris wheel after trying out a few of the other attractions. They were all giggling and making jokes as they made their way to their seats. All the boys and girls started yelling in terror as soon as they reached the top. The children fled from the ride, shivering with fright, as soon as they hit the bottom once more. They insisted that while riding the ride, they noticed a young boy staring at them and having blood dripping down his face. A few weeks later, 2 women in their mid-40s were riding when they spotted blood dripping onto their legs. When they raised their heads, they noticed a young boy in the automobile above them. They claimed that he was drenched in blood, which was flowing down upon them. When they returned to the bottom and told the ride operator what they had just seen, the young child had vanished. A girl and her boyfriend rode the ride in 2009, and they both had a terrible encounter. They claimed to have seen a little figure seated in the car next to them when they reached the top of the ride. It was a little boy wearing blood-stained clothing. The boy vanished in front of their eyes as they stared. Later on in that same year, the amusement park's proprietors invited a psychic to take a look at the Ferris wheel. She claimed that the small boy's ghost, which is still tied to the Ferris wheel, is preventing his soul from finding peace. Fall of 2009 saw another tragic event as customers were visiting the amusement park on a typical day and making use of all the rides. The Ferris wheel was turning normally when it abruptly fell into a pit. The passengers aboard the ride became aware of the smoke smell while they waited for the ride to restart. The ride suddenly started to burn. The cars caught fire as terrified individuals started shouting in terror. People began hurling themselves from the vehicles as the flames grew closer and closer. While several of them plummeted and died on the earth below, the occupants in the lower cars were safe. The guests who were still on the ride were eventually rescued by helicopter when the amusement park staff managed to put out the flames. As the Ferris wheel was being taken apart, the park's owners made the decision to destroy it. The engine short circuit that caused the ride to catch fire was discovered by workers. The mechanism was clogged by a child's shoe hair. Pretty spooky ride, wasn't it? Well, more horror stories can send shivers down your spine, but these 3 terrifying Halloween tales are our favorite. Which one scared you the most? Let us know in the comments section. Click the bell icon and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. Until then, you may continue watching in the video below. Goodbye and have a great day.